All right, Avon. Is it Avon? Ivan? What's the best way to pronounce that? The correct way.
Ivan. Ivan is
I
correct. Just like
Ivan.
Ivan the Terrible.
Ivan the Terrible. Okay.
Or I.
Well,
What's his name again? The Russian bad guy. Ivan the.
it was Ivan the Terrible.
Is it
That's what I
Ivan the
remember.
Terrible?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
that's what
yeah,
I
yeah.
remember. All right. Well, Lauren's here. Lauren, this is Ivan. Ivan, this is Lauren. And as is
Hello, Lauren.
tradition, Lauren's going to ask the first question of the guest.
So there is my question is why do you buy cows out of all the animals, all the farm animals now?
That's a good question. I don't know. I just think cows are the coolest. My girlfriend thinks sheep are the coolest, so she's not so happy with me only having cows, and especially not happy with me wanting to buy more cows. She wants us to get sheep instead, or sheep in addition to cows. But I think cows are the main reason why I got cows to begin with is because it's the best animal for my farm. I think different farms um, fit to different kind of animals, and my farm is a good farm for beef to have cows. And sheep is also a very bad financial decision in Norway these days, and also more suitable in the mountain areas in Norway. So it's basically just what I thought fit best for our land.
Mm-hmm. Do you have anything to say about cows?
Like cows are really cute. Oh, and apparently cows have best friends. That's a fun fact.
Cows have best friends.
Like,
Who
That's
told
very
you that?
true. That's very true, actually.
That's true?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely. There's Lauren is on the spot. It's definitely clicks within the cattle herd, and they have friends and enemies just like us humans do. And some individuals are bullied if they're weaker than the rest, and other individuals are very much about asserting dominance over the other animals. So there's definitely some alliances within the group, and yeah, sometimes those alliances clash together, and it can be quite a magnificent scene when they try to rival over being the leader cow.
Wow. Okay. We learned something. Well, I learned something new.
you should have known it.
Lauren's a big fan of cows. Our neighbors are cows, so we have a field of
We have
cows.
cows as
I
neighbors
heard.
every time we've been in
As long
France.
as we've lived in France, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. We've always been around cows, and we love cows because they are delicious
and they're cute.
and they're cute. Yeah, especially when they're babies.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And there's you want to go cow cuddling, right?
Such thing as cow cuddling farms, and I really want to go to a cow cuddling farm.
Did you know this?
So there's a cow cuddling farm.
There seems to be a craze at the moment, and I don't know where is it. It's in England. It's in the US as well.
Most of the time, I think.
Yeah, so you've got another business here, mate, that you could start opening up. Come and cuddle some cows for sats. We would
Hey,
have to fly over, wouldn't we?
Well, duh.
Yeah.
you know, the cattle herd, it's a great idea actually, because the cattle herd I just visited that I want to buy some individuals from, if I can find the funds, they are actually kind of like a cow cuddling farm because they receive middle school students and elderly homes and other, yeah, people that are in groups that get this offer. And those animals are so much more tame and used to humans than my animals, because my animals before I got them almost weren't handled at all. So very very good idea to start a cow cuddling farm with these really cozy cows.
There you go. You've introduced a new revenue stream to Ivan. Well, do you have any other questions about cows, cow lady?
Thank you. Uh, no.
You don't have your squishmallows.
Oh my gosh, they're upstairs.
Well, you want to go and grab it?
Upstairs.
Okay. a squishmallow, for those listening that have no idea what I'm talking about, because I had no idea what I was talking about 3 days ago before she got one for her birthday, is just a little plushy soft toy thing. But that's what all the kids want these days, apparently. So she's going to go and grab her cow one that she's very proud of and happy that she gets to cuddle every night. But before she gets back with that, I know I'm going to start asking you a question. She's just going to come crashing back through the door. So we may as well just wait a second. Yeah, here she is. Oh, here we go.
Right, first I need my earphone on.
This is a great podcast for those listening right now.
Yeah, they can't see it, which is a shame.
No,
But there's one. And then two.
That's beautiful.
I know. And they're so squishy and they're so great to hug. So this is my free cow cuddling farm.
maybe we'll get a deal to shill Squishmallows now. They might get in touch
Yeah.
after they've listened to this Bitcoin and Beef podcast.
So yeah, this is basically a cow cuddling farm though. I just realized.
It is. Right. Say goodbye. Thank you.
Bye.
Nice to meet you. Goodbye.
Nice to meet you too. Hope to see your cows.
Yeah, it would be great to see your cows. I've seen them. I saw the first cohort, at least, when it's still your pinned tweet, and I love it. And I remember when that tweet dropped. It was like, I don't know why it evoked so much emotion in so many people, but what does it say? I got some fucking cows, and they come charging out of the van and skipping around. It was so good to see that, because as a pleb seeing another pleb, like, wow, this guy, he's taken a U-turn on life here. Whatever, well, we'll get into that, I suppose, but like it's just like, wow, Bitcoin has enabled him to be able to make a decision that is important to him, and this is clearly like a huge deal. And I remember, and I could just feel the emotion from the tweet. So if nobody's ever seen that, go back and look at your Twitter thread. It's great. I love watching the little calf skip down the ramp. And are those cows still with you?
They are. Yeah, actually all of them are. And that tweet was just, I think I actually just posted it right on the spot. It was just what I felt at that exact time. Like, I fucking bought cows, and it was exactly what you described now. It was just a feeling of doing something that there's so many reasons not to do, and so many things that you could tell to yourself to avoid doing such a crazy thing as being 25 years old or whatever I was at the time, 24 maybe. And just buying a herd of cattle without. I read a few books. I discussed some topics in some Twitter threads, watched some YouTube videos, some articles, read up on whatever bureaucratic bullshit you have to fill out to be allowed to have cows in the world we live in today. And still a crazy thing to do, and but I was just so happy at that moment that I jumped into it, and it was just a huge adrenaline kick to watch these animals jump out of the van. And I was like, holy shit, they're going to run straight through the fence. No chance these animals are going to be in my possession by the end of the day. But it went completely fine. They ran around for maybe half an hour, and then they settled down. I went out to them the next morning, laid down on the ground, and just had a photo shoot with my own cows. It was amazing.
Excellent. Okay, so right, let's back it up. Where were you? What path were you on? Like, what were you studying to do, to be? What job had you found, or were you looking for? What had led you to that point before? What you studied at university before you took on the Bitcoin and cow adventure?
Yeah. So the Bitcoin adventure started some years earlier, but the farming adventure was basically right out of college. I studied marketing and sales management in college, and was working for a fertility services company with sales and business development. And then in 2021, my parents basically go bankrupt and have to sell the farm, and I'm put up with the choice that, okay, think this was January or something, like, hey, it looks like this farm is going to be sold against our will if nothing particular happens, and you
So,
really
so
have to
had
make
you
the choice whether you want it or not.
had you grown up on a farm?
Yeah, I did. So this is this farm has been in my family for it's either 5 or 6 generations. I'm not sure because the sources say a little different things, but it's been in my family for a long time, since the 1800s. And my parents were running this farm for 25 years, basically since I was born and until I was 24 years until I was 24.
Wow. Okay. So what kind of farm? Has it always been the same throughout those generations, or has it taken on different iterations?
Absolutely not. And that's very fun. We have these history books in Norway, these like town history books that basically just describe all the farms, because our town was basically just farms back 100 years ago. It was a few houses, but mainly farms. And they said, like, okay, this farm had 5 cows, they had 13 sheep, they had 51 hens and 3 pigs. And it was basically the same for all the farms, varying a little bit from their size, but they all had all different animals, like even maybe rabbits and a couple horses for just like the horsepower. And they all had diverse farms at this point. So that's how my farm too was at this period. And I think, according to this book, that there was 20 something people working on my farm in this day. And today, my farm is, I would say, maybe like a fifth the size of a farm you would expect to live off of in Norway. And I think that really says something, that 20 people were able to sustain their lives off of a farm in this time. And now people sort of laugh at you if you think, hey, I'm going to live at this farm, I'm not going to have a job on the side, because I think having a job sucks. I'm gonna make my farm my business. How things changed throughout the ages.
And
then
what can you point that to? Like what's been happening to squeeze the farms?
There's so many things, but I think I think we like to call it fiat in Bitcoin, and I guess that's an appropriate term. But there's so many more things. I think central planning in general is a big cause of this, because even today, me running a pretty small farm operation, I have to spend so much time on just being compliant to all these rules and reporting things and all this bureaucratic bullshit you have to have a farm. I think that just makes people not see the value in it. It's so much better for one person to run 5 farms and do this paperwork for that than for each person to sit around and do all this bullshit at their own farm. And it also seems like the subsidy structures and the way things are handled from the government side, like the agricultural department, is really controlled towards that they want fewer farmers and bigger farmers. The problem, I think you saw the same in the rest of the world, and maybe the most known example is in the US. But what a lot of, I think both politicians and bureaucrats don't understand is that Norway is so different geographically from a country like the US, where if you're going to run 5 farms, then you're going to have 30 fields. And if you're going to operate 30 fields, you're eventually going to run out of steam, and you're going to put a few of these fields out of production, because you just simply don't have the time to take care of all these small plots. But if you actually have the 5 original farms, and with the farmers that love and care for their land and operate it in a small scale, sustainable and decentralized way, then I think those small fields matter much more to them, and they care much more about taking care of those. So I think it's a long line of things, but I think the fiat incentives and the increased central planning that we've seen for so many decades is the main reason.
And what about, I'm guessing, are you kind of looked at as the weird guy by your peer group, that you've gone back to run the farm? You're not running off into the big cities to get a job like most people have been gaslit into believing that the thing is to go and study, right? You said you studied marketing. I'm going to have some questions for you about that in a second, actually. Go get your marketing job, man. Go work in the corporate ladder. Go and get the big job in the city. Don't worry about the farm.
Yeah, so I think I have a good alibi since I already did that for a couple of years and worked for one of these a pretty big company in Norway for some years and tried this life and then chose to go back. It's not like I'm a farmer because I'm too dumb to go to university. Like some of these people could say about others, which I don't think is the case at all. I think the regular farmer is as smart and capable as the general business owner. If you're able to stay in business and farming, then then you're not a dumb guy. Wait, what was your question again?
Yeah, did they look at you kind of like, what are you doing?
Oh yeah, but I am totally still the weird guy doing farming in a weird way, and a lot of them are like, yeah, but yeah, you have to think about this. They have to think about this. But then I'm like, yeah, but I'm not so keen on sitting in the tractor for 12 hours a day shoveling snow to pay down the tractor loan just so I can farm because it looks good, because all the rows are looking the same and there's just one crop and everything looks weed free and all this. I'm not about that. I'm about something else.
Right. So marketing, studying at university. I've always wondered what a professor can teach you about marketing. Somebody that generally hasn't, run a business themselves is teaching a syllabus or a course or an agenda to young, impressionable minds. And the reason this comes up is because, I have discussions with my daughters, like my 18-year-old is trying to decide, oh, I want to go to university and I want to study this. And she'd come up with different things. And one of them would be marketing. I'm like, what? What do you do you think a 45-year-old professor is going to know how to use TikTok or YouTube Shorts and market a business? Or like, it's changed so much so quickly. But what did what practical skills could you have taken away, or did you take away from the university, or what is being taught in these courses?
Even now, or at least right after the studies, I was thinking the same. Like, what did these guys really have to teach us? And it kind of feels like they didn't have that much to teach us at all. It became just because I think they know that what they learned whenever they took a PhD or something in marketing 30 years ago isn't relevant anymore. So they just have to stay sort of general and just keep it very, very general and sort of not talk too much about the tools or what you can do with it or how specifically you can market a business. They just have to talk about the 4 Ps and all this general stuff without getting too much into detail, because there's probably at least 5 students in the room that has a greater reach than these PhD marketers ever had.
Yeah.
Because they're famous on TikTok or Twitter or whatever social media they're on.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, well then, yeah, you confirmed my fears that there's a lot of just nothingness going on in a lot of these degrees, and marketing just being one example. Right. Okay. So let's talk about farming. You get the cows, you order the cows that day, it arrives, the cows come in and they jump off. No, we have not talked about your Bitcoin rabbit hole story. Excuse me. Why did you start looking into Bitcoin? What happened there? Who led you to the rabbit hole?
A very short story. It's a guy, he's on Twitter as well. I think everyone should follow him. It's called Rattus Norvegicus. And he was a friend from all the way back in kindergarten, primary school, middle school, high school. We separated ways like most other people when I went to the military and he went to study at university. But one break, I think it was like half a year into my military service, we came back and he had made like I think some number $1,000 on Ethereum, and I was like, whoa, I want to make that number of money too on doing nothing. That sounds great. And fell into Coinbase like most other people. Bought my first. I bought Bitcoin though. I don't know why, and I have no idea how I landed on Bitcoin and not Bitcoin Cash at this time, because it was right around the. I think it was right after the fork wars. So it's very funny that I landed in the right spot right away. But I, of course, like most others, drifted away from this very quickly since Bitcoin dropped from 18,000 or whatever almost top that I managed to hit, and I tried to make it up by gambling on, XRP or all these other shit coins. Before, in sometime in 2019, I think, after losing interest, thinking like, yeah, I definitely got scammed for all of 2018, and thinking, okay, I lost the money, but I'm not gonna sell. I'm just gonna, if it's going to zero, it's going to zero. I'm gonna take the loss. But in 2019, I realized that things were happening again, and I sort of started to research. And yeah, I think until before 2020 came, luckily, I understood that Bitcoin was where it's at. All these shitcoins doesn't really have any value, and just I think theoretically can't work. Yeah, the COVID crash came, and that was. I feel like that was more like my battle hardening in Bitcoin more than the 2018, because 2018 was more like I just gave up, just like, okay, money's lost, that's fine. But in 2020 there was more at stake, and I really managed to buy the dip. Felt great, just feel that Zen feeling of losing money but gaining sats.
Oh yeah, it was a great dip. What a dip to buy. But
I can still feel it. I can still remember the feeling of buying that dip. It was
Twitter
insane.
was so good.
World was falling apart.
Yeah. What resources then managed to, bring you to the idea that, well, everything else is a shitcoin. Bitcoin is the only thing.
I think I have to almost 100% give that credit. Like, it was going hard on Twitter at that time, and that was just around the time I joined Twitter as well. I think this was his period of being, I don't know, it was like a wartime American hodl or something. That was his time, in my opinion.
it just cut out as you named him. It was American Hodl, you said, right?
American hodl, that's right.
Yeah. Hodl, you've got he did a great job on a lot of people. I was definitely. I even said to him, actually, I saw him in Miami, and I gifted him a book and I signed it. And in the book I said, you're one of the reasons I'm a hardcore maxi, because I was following his tweets, amongst others, Pierre and Bitstein and Safe and all those guys. It was just amazing. And the pods, big shout out to the podcasters during that time. They were putting in the work as well. Yeah, and you only had a few. You had Peter, and you had Brady, you had John, Stefan. I'm sure I'm missing one other, but they were the ones that I was, really kind of digging into myself, and like, oh, okay, and click, 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 click. But Bitcoin Twitter, like, my goodness, what a place, what a think tank that period turned out to be. And people will look back and like, if you weren't around in those days, I mean, Twitter is still obviously a weird place, and people are going to throw missiles at each other, but that just seemed to be a special period. 19 and 20 in particular, when all the COVID stuff was coming out, and everyone was calling BS on that. Well, not everyone, obviously. There are some people that weren't fully into calling out the BS, or didn't see it, but in general, yes, it was a great place to find solace, I would say, and conviction, and sense, and truth.
I'm very fast on going from November 2019 until March 2020. If I hadn't, I'd been regardless. This thing was weird going. So
I'm getting a lot of dropouts.
So
actually, I'm getting a lot of dropouts on your audio. I don't know if that's your earphones or my Wi-Fi.
I had some sound as well. You sound okay.
No, it's dropping. Can you hear me okay? Does my sound good?
I hear you very good now. Yeah.
Can you switch your mic to the Mac just for a second, just to see if it's your earphones? Maybe they might run low on battery or something. Who knows?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
Is it better?
Yeah, you seem clear. You seem clear for now. If it keeps dropping, then it's probably the Wi-Fi. But yeah, so you said, sorry, I said about Bitcoin Twitter, and it being it built solid foundations for knowledge for many people.
Definitely. It was I don't know what was so great about it at that time, but it was I don't know, it's never gotten back to that to being what it was, but hopefully we can get there again. I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully, mate. Hopefully. All right, so you got the Bitcoin stacked. Had you been watching as well this lean towards red meat and in particular beef on Bitcoin Twitter as well, and the idea that it's ridiculous to villainize beef, and was that playing on your mind as you were thinking about the farm and losing it, generations after generations, that the place you'd grown up in as well? What was going through your mind?
I hadn't really noticed that until I started. Well, I noticed probably after I got cows, but before I started selling beef, that this meat thing was a big thing in Bitcoin. Like I thought it was, something to it that, okay, some of these people are carnivores, and I had never tried carnivore at that time myself, and was like, okay, that sounds interesting. Maybe I'll try it sometime. But I didn't think there was any substance to this movement. The funny thing I realized was I don't have a website up yet for the farm, and so I just used like this Google, what is it called, like this Google thing you send in to order meat. And I posted this on like my farm Facebook page. I posted this to people that asked me about, hey, where can I buy meat? I posted this on Twitter. And I was like, okay, it seems like I thought I got like 50-50 from Twitter and from Facebook and other sources. And then I went out to deliver meat, these 2 rounds that I have delivered meat. And it seems like 95% of the people that bought my meat are Bitcoiners that met or found me on Twitter, which I think is very funny. I had no idea it was such a big thing. But and another thing that's really interesting about that is I have a long list before I took any orders of people that were interested in buying my meat, who had told me, hey, whenever you get meat for sale, I'm going to buy it. Basically, only the people that said that. Probably 50% or 70% of the people outside of Bitcoin that said that never bought, or just like, oh yeah, no, I don't have a freezer actually, or I don't have space in my freezer, or whatever excuse they can come up with. And the Bitcoiners are all like, yeah, I'm gonna buy it, but I'm gonna have 3 times more than I ordered. I want more. So it was just insane to experience, first of all, that the interest in great meat, grass-fed, organic, holistically grazed beef is so big, but also how Bitcoiners actually do what they say. It's not like you say something and do something else, but you actually do what you say. And I think that's great.
That's amazing. And this is all within Norway, right? It's not like you're shipping outside.
Yeah, I'm only selling in around Oslo, basically in Norway, so within an hour and a half around where I live.
So did that surprise you, even like the amount of Bitcoiners that were actually on your doorstep?
Yeah, that keeps surprising me every day. I get new messages or new people reaching out in some way, if it's just commenting or sending a DM or whatever it is. I think it's astonishing how many Bitcoiners there are, and yeah, the more Bitcoiners I meet, the more bullish I'm on Bitcoin as a movement.
Damn. So you're only an hour and a half from Oslo, downtown?
I'm an hour from Oslo, and then I just drew a circle a little bit
Right.
around because there's a lot of rich people living on the west side of Oslo, but I live on the east side, so I wanted to include those.
Have the Human Rights Foundation brought a group out to come and visit you?
They haven't, but I think those, I don't think that they have an office in Oslo. I think they're just holding the conference here, or do they
Just
have
the conference, just the conference.
Yeah,
And I think it's going to be June of this year, I think.
Yeah.
It's worth reaching out to CK and the guys and say, listen, would love to host. You could show them around the farm and explain how, you know, Bitcoin and beef, you know, comes together, and I'm sure it'd be of interest.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting actually, and I was there in 2022, and that was a great conference. The way they knitted together Bitcoin and these activists and the other human rights efforts that this organization is doing was, I think it was amazing.
So let's talk about the farming process itself. If there are other plebs out there that thinking, right, okay, screw it, I'm going to go buy some land, I'm going to use some of my Bitcoin, we're going to have a nice house, we're going to have like well, you tell me, how many acres do you need minimum, and how many cows would you start with? What's the best advice you can give an aspiring cattle ranching Bitcoin pleb that's never touched a farm before and has this ideal in his mind that, yeah, this is going to be it. We're going to go be self-sustainable, raise beef, kill our own animals. It sounds perfect, but it's a hell of a lot of work, as you know, and as you're about to explain. So what should people actually be thinking about, you know, realistically, before making any kind of decision?
You know, I'll answer your first question first. Like, how small can you go? Like, how much do you need to sustain yourself? And I just want to say, if you just disregard beef for now, if you just wanted to sustain yourself without buying toxic food from the stores, you knew where everything you made came from, you could probably get away with half an acre. Like 2,000 square meters is that's around half an acre. Is completely fine for probably a family to live off of. You'd have to import some fertility, and I would suggest importing animal manure then, because that would be best to grow your food in by far. And then you could sustain yourself, but of course you'd have to be vegan or vegetarian, and I don't wish that upon anyone. So you should probably go a little bigger. But if you want a cow, I think you need at least an acre, maybe 2 acres per cow, depending on where you are. Where I live here in Norway, we now have had between -15 and -31 for almost a month. So it's been insanely cold.
And that's degrees C, right, for the American listeners?
What?
And that's minus degrees C, yeah, degrees centigrade.
Minus Celsius, that's right.
Right, Celsius, yep.
I don't even know what -31 is in Fahrenheit. I don't know if they ever go this
I don't know.
far down in Fahrenheit. But it's insanely cold. It's like your nostrils freeze 30 seconds after you go outside the door. And I don't have a barn, like a warm barn to have my cows in. So my cows are outside the whole day. They have a straw bed that they sleep in at night because it's required by law. And also it makes it possible for me to import a lot of fertility from my neighboring farms, basically for free, because they give away the straw, which I can use as bedding. And when my cows shit in it and pee in it, and I compost it for some time, turn it around and spread it on my fields, I get all this fertility on my fields. But the grain farmers don't want it, because for them it's a liability to have this fertility, because then they have to buy more nitrogen fertilizer to break this carbon down. So they just see it as a liability. But I see it as a great way to build topsoil. So that's a great exchange, which I'm making possible by having a place where they sleep at night. Long term, I want to get to the place where I can have the cows in the forest all winter, but to get there, I have to set up a water infrastructure that allows me to have, -31 and will still get water to the cows without having to carry buckets. since one cow maybe drinks 50 liters a day, carrying buckets is not really an option. Even if you're doing it with your tractor and filling 1,000 liters at a time, it's still not a feasible solution. You have to find some way to heat your troughs of water and to keep the water from freezing on the way to the trough.
So can the cows that they just stand, they're in the field the whole time in that weather, and they're not, I mean, how does it affect them?
It seems like it doesn't at all. They can go inside during the day as well, but they spend the whole day outside. And especially when they're sunny, they all line up so that they all have their sides to the sun and just soak in the sun. I mean, they could go inside and just lay down and dry straw and be warm and nice and warm, but they would rather stand outside and eat. And if they're not eating, they're just, fooling around. So they really don't care about the cold, it seems. And that's mainly because it's a heritage breed from, I think this breed was developed during the 1800s. So it was sort of like finalized towards the middle or the end of the 1800s. And then it was the most popular breed in my area in Oslo, or my area in Norway, because they made 5 or 6 of these breeds that fit specifically to each place in Norway. So they had like a different one in the west coast, different one in the mountains and the south, different one in the mountains in the north, and then all the way up north, the middle, and where I live. So I think they have 5 or 6 different breeds. It was the most popular around my area until I think 1950, like right after World War II, where they developed a much bigger and more efficient milk breed that was out competing all the other breeds. So they just implemented this breed all over the place, and that was sort of in line with the changing thinking about farming. Now farming was just input output. It wasn't soil health. It wasn't quality of life and sustainability of the soil or any of these things taken into consideration. It was just, okay, the input should be as low as possible to get the highest input possible. So they just made the cows bigger and bigger, and to the low point, the breed I have now had only 11 mother animals left in Norway, and they managed to save it by mixing the Norwegian and the Swedish breed for a while, and I think now they got it up to 500, but it's still a very small breed. But I think it's a great breed for the reason that they thrive in the cold, which we just talked about. They have very easy calvings. I didn't even have the chance to see a calving last year. I had 7 calves and didn't see a single one, even though I was paying attention, and I was there 5 minutes before it dropped to the ground, and I was there 5 minutes after, but none of the calvings did I get to see, and it's just because they have so easy calvings. The animals are not bred to become bigger and bigger and have bigger and bigger calves, so the process is much easier and much closer to the natural way of doing it. Like a cow in the wild back in the day wouldn't have a person to come and help her jack out the calf with a chain, and they also thrive on pretty low quality grass, which is also a great thing. You don't have to feed them prime food all the time, and if you can't source good feed, or you're not in luck with the feed production this year, doesn't mean that you have to cull half your herd, because they can thrive quite well on poor grass and even straw if you're in a real crisis. Just like it was back in the day when they had a bad grass year, you would use straw and mix it with your hay, which you can do with these animals as well.
What's the name of the breed?
It's called Østlandske Rødkolle.
Okay, yeah, I know it well. Yeah.
It's the Norwegian name. It's I think the sister breed in Britain and the US is South Pole or Red Pole. They exist outside of Norway, slightly different, and not specifically made like it's the same breed but specifically made for Britain or America or whatever they are.
How many breeds are there?
cows in total?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's many hundred.
That's crazy. I never thought about that. You know the few, I guess. What do we like? Angus, right? Is
Yeah.
shilled hard
Yeah.
in the UK, Scottish especially.
Yeah, it's very popular in Norway too. No, we have a lot of breeds. I think I don't know them off the top of my head, but I think I've heard about at least 20 only African breeds. So there's a ton of breeds.
I've had Jake Volke on the show. He's the guy in Australia that
Yeah.
keeps us all updated, and he has Nguni, I think is the way you pronounce it.
Yeah.
An African breed, which makes sense, right? If you're in the Australian bush, I'm sure they're used to eating that kind of brush. And so, all right. So my question was going to be like, if you're knee deep in snow out in the field, how are the cows eating the grass, and what? I mean, because grass fed, right? It's not like you can just go out there with a bucket of grain and here you go, girls, get on with that.
That's right. So they're 100% grass fed even in winter. And the way you feed the grass in winter, most places, most of the time, is with bales. And I would love if my cows could just go full moose mode and just eat grass straight off my field, even in the winter. But I think both the way they're built and the way our winters are, I think that's too much to expect from them.
But a moose can, right? A moose can break through that layer of snow and get to the grass underneath. That's what they're doing.
That's what they do, but a moose will also put on way less meat in a year, and they'll also be like their body condition is way skinnier, so it's a completely different animal. The rumen works different, so I think you can't expect the cow to thrive on that. But I do know people in Norway that graze, winter graze part of the season, and I really want to get there where I can do that as well, to graze. If you're in Australia or Africa, you're talking about the growing season and the non-growing season. And your non-growing season is like the winter, but they don't really have a winter with a meter of snow like we have now, covering all the grass.
So that's why you need to get in the bales of hay, and that's literally cut and dried grass. Or is it not that basic? Is there more things to it? And what's the difference between hay and straw? You said straw earlier.
Yeah, the straw is basically the grass from the grain production. It's basically the grains are just collected from the straw, and then the straw is cut and left on the field. And if you leave it on the field, that's a lot of it's very carbon rich, the straw that you leave, and you would have to use a lot of nitrogen fertilizer to break that down. So my neighboring farmers, they want me to collect that straw and put it into bales. And I don't use straw as feed, but I use straw as the bedding. So they just
as the bedding you said earlier, right? Okay.
But my cows, I can't tell my cows that straw is for bedding and hay is for eating, so they eat straw as well. They do whatever they want, and they're doing it to find the balance in their gut, and they know what they need, so they'll eat just the amount of straw that they want. Doesn't taste good, but they know, okay, now my stomach is a little sour, I have to eat some straw. And it also depends what kind of hay you get. Like there's silage or almost like wet grass. You almost don't dry it at all. Maybe you dry it one day and you pack it into bales, and it's very wet. And I don't like that so much, because when it's minus 30, those become like an ice ball. It's very hard for the cows to penetrate that and to actually eat enough during the day. So I prefer having semi-dry or dry hay that they can eat, and then they drink more water from it and have more heat loss because of this, and maybe don't become as fat as they would be. But I think it's a more natural gut balance, and just better for both the cows and easier to handle the hay.
So is that an overhead for you? Unlike the straw, which you can just go and collect whenever you want. Obviously, you got to pay for the fuel to go and bale it and bring it back and whatever else. But the hay, is that something you're buying from another farmer, or have you got a spare field that you can cut in the summer and stock up? How are you working that?
Yeah, my plan was to have a field where I collected hay myself this year, but we had a serious drought. I think it was the worst like early summer drought we had in many decades. So the grass really stopped its growth early in the season and never really came back. So I had to use all my areas for grazing the cows. So I had to buy all the hay, and it's definitely not cheap. I think I have to pay like yeah, $100 for a bale.
Wow.
So yeah,
How many bales are you getting through a day?
I think they eat a bale lasts like 1.5 days. So
Between how many cows?
I now have 15.
Damn.
So you got to buy. I don't know. I bought like 150 or something. So it sucks to have to buy it, but it's a very good motivation to increase your self sustainability and to get that production in house next year.
Mm.
And as well to get better grass so you can actually winter graze, because this year I wouldn't have anything to winter graze at all because the grass never got ahead of the cattle. So I didn't have anything to save in the end of the season. But if I improve my soil quality, then I'll have spare grass at the end of the season, hopefully, and I can winter graze the cattle at least when it's not as crazy of a winter as we have now.
And do you do that by keeping them close together? Who was the guy? Joel. He came out about 18 months ago talking about how to graze cattle together and just move them with an electric fence. So you're heavily grazing one area, but that's getting heavily trodden and heavily fertilized at the same time. Is this the style of grazing that you practice?
It is. Is it the Untapped Growth?
Untapped Growth, yes.
Yeah. He's really into Joel.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot about that from him specifically, actually, which is very fun. He recommended me a couple really good books about this. I think first I read Soil to Dirt, which is an American farmer that lays out some principles for how to farm without basically going bankrupt and destroying your soil at the same time. And then he also recommended a book that goes deep into this holistic, or not holistic grazing, but like ultra high stock density grazing, which is a book called Man, Cattle and Velv by Johan Sjetsman, which is an African farmer. And the challenge with this is that I'm basically in the opposite side of the spectrum of these African or Midwest American farmers. Like their climate is basically the total opposite of what I have. We have so much rain and so intense summers. Like our nature sleeps for 7 months out of the year, and then they have to catch up and do everything in those 5 months that are left. So we have to think much more about getting ahead of the grass, because if we are too slow with rotating our cattle, then the grass will go to seed and it will stop growing because it fulfilled its mission of the year. Like, okay, I'm going to grow, I'm going to go above the others, I'm going to make my seed head, and I'm going to spread my seeds. And then the next generation is going to survive. Since things happen so fast here, we have to move faster than the grass moves. And the challenge then is to have high enough stock density that you can get ahead of the grass.
Mm-hmm. So you want that grass being grazed before it's gone to seed, and imagine so the plant that I understand, once it's gone to seed, it feels as though it's done its job. But if it's grazed just before it goes to seed, it's going to carry on growing because it's, oh shit, I still need to drop my seed.
That's right.
Okay.
And then it's very important to, like, if you graze it the first time in the year, maybe here we release our animals on the pasture in the end of May. So I have quite a lot of time left that I have to feed bales. Then it's very important that they don't graze it one more time 2 days after or 1 week after, because when you graze it one time, it's stimulating growth. and you're not zapping the roots of the plant of energy. And it's going to use the energy it has in its roots to grow. And when it grows back up, it's going to use the energy from the sun to strengthen its roots as well as grow more. So then you have to give it enough rest time for that plant to be vigorous. But then again, graze it before it goes to seed once more. And maybe you get a chance to do this 4 times if you're really good here in Norway, while in a lot of other regions, like in Africa, maybe you have to wait 12 to 18 months between each time you graze it. So it's like a total different setup. And I think there's pros and cons about living anywhere, but I think there's very few farmers here in Norway that have figured out the holistic grazing or ultra high stock density grazing and harsh winters and rapid grass growth combination. It's a lot of factors to handle at the same time, and it's also varying so much between each year. If you get a drought or you don't get a drought, it's you always have to adjust. But I think that's a really cool thing to be pioneering in and to try to find the right recipe for. So
that's awesome. And doing that as well, that it improves the topsoil, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it does.
Strengthens it through and deepens it.
Yeah, and I think since I'm saying that I'm doing regenerative agriculture, and I feel like that's what I'm doing, but then someone could always come along and ask, well, what is really regenerative agriculture? And some people might say, okay, but that sounds like bogus. That just sounds like organic farming or biodynamic farming or whatever you want to call it all over again. It's just a new term to sell more of your product. But I think a very important part of regenerative agriculture is being able to prove that you're actually regenerating your soil. I think if you're going to call yourself regenerative, then you have to prove that you're improving those factors that we know are good in soil, like increasing the carbon content, deepening your roots, deepening the soil, topsoil layer, also of course the visible parts above the ground, like better grass each year. So I took soil samples last fall, because it's important to do those in the fall, and it's going to be very interesting to see the progress along the years.
That was going to be my question. How many years do you think it would take for you to see noticeable difference?
In some areas, I saw noticeable differences in 3 months, like this first grade.
Really?
Yeah.
3 months, you could already see through the soil samples that it was improving the topsoil.
No, not through the soil samples. This was just observation of the areas. And those areas were actually forest areas until 2021. So they were cut down in 2021, just clear cut the forest. Which was my parents did this to some areas before I took over the farm, and those areas are previous pastures, it seems like, both because there's barbed wire there in those areas that you can find some scraps from, which is of course a hazard for the cows, so I try to find them and rip them up. But you can also see that the grass in these areas are coming up so fast just when it gets a little bit of sun and some animal impact. So those areas went from having no grass to being trampled really hard and getting rest after that, to becoming just looking like better than some places on my fields. So it's quite amazing how fast it can happen in just some weeks. But some of those areas were partly due to just random events. Like I had to separate the calves from the herd early, because the herd I bought have calving in January, which I think sucks, because why would you want to have calving when it's 31 minus Celsius outside? It's not natural at all, and you're just creating extra work for yourself to get more subsidy money, because the subsidy money is based on counting animals 1st of March and 1st of October. But I don't want to farm and make my decisions based on what's going to get me the most subsidies. So I postponed my calving to March, April this year. I'm going to postpone it again to May next year. But since I did that, I also had to separate the calves early, because otherwise the breeding bull would be in harm's way of breeding the calves already, because this breed gets sexually mature so early. So the animals were trampling in one place really, really hard because they wanted to get back to their calves. So that's how I could see it so fast. But it's very fun because that area looks completely destroyed after the cows are there. But then when you see it later in the summer, it's like, maybe that wasn't so bad after all, because now that looks like the best place on my whole farm. So you can see results really, really fast, but improving your whole farm or all the land under your management substantially takes several years. And I look forward to taking the second soil sample, but I'm not expecting it to be like a black and white improvement, like anything crazy. But I'm not short on time. I'm going to take my time, and I look forward to in 5, 10, 20, 30 years. That's when the real magic is going to happen.
Low time preference. So you've mentioned the forest a couple of times, and we just always think of the cow just standing in the middle of a grassy field, not a forest beast. Are they comfortable in there?
I love the forest. So my cows are probably as little fond of heat as they are fond of the cold. So when it doesn't get that warm here, but when it gets to 25 degrees Celsius here, the cows would rather lay in the forest the whole day and almost not eat anything than to be outside grazing on the field. They do not like the heat at all. It's both because of the flies and everything on the fields, just exponentially growing in the cow patties and giving them a hard time. But it's also the heat and the water they need to drink when it's so warm. So they would rather just be in the forest. So I have a lot of forest areas still. Some of it is sort of at the end of its growth cycle and has to be harvested, and some of it is in the beginning of the growth cycle. So I'm trying to combine it with cattle farming, with harvesting the mature wood and making firewood and timber to build on my barn or whatever building project I have, and at the same time graze it with cows, so that I can have both the forest and the cows at the same time. But
what kind of what trees are they? What kind of wood are you getting out of them?
So most of my farm is probably spruce, which is a kind of wood that grows very quickly and is very economical here in Norway. But it's also struggling because we have had milder winters and warmer summers lately. And then the spruce really starts to struggle with spreading its seeds, because it needs to be a certain amount of cold for a certain amount of time for the seeds to spread, or for the seeds to survive and germinate in the spring. And when it's warmer in the summer, it's also drying out more, and it's also more susceptible to disease and insects killing it. So I expect the spruce in my forest to pretty much die out in time. And a lot of areas, up to 50% of the spruce is already died out. So I'm just taking it out as it dies out, and also trying to get ahead of it so that I get the timber in good condition before it dies out. And then turn that into pasture instead, leave some leaf trees or other trees that would survive this change better, and just have grass under it. And I think that's the way these landscapes have been for many thousand years before humans dominated the landscape. And I think that's the way it should turn back to on my farm. That's what I'm envisioning, and that's what I feel is right to do here. So that's what I'm going to do.
Cool. All right. So we've talked about your beef being grass fed. What are people doing then? The other farmers, what are they doing to feed their cows? What are they using? And why is that bad? And why should plebs be only trying to source grass-fed beef whenever they can?
So I think Norway is actually quite good in this regard. We're very high up on like the grass-fed amount of beef. Most beef produced in Norway is fed maybe 30% grain or 40% grain. And I don't feed grain at all, mostly because the cows don't need it, and it's going to cost me more money than feeding them grass. So I don't see why you would want to do it. But in certain in certain ways of farming that you are in agricultural school today, you're taught that, okay, you need to do this, you need to grow the animal as fast as possible, because then you're the most efficient and you'll make the most money. And you have to have a big barn, it has to be warm and nice for the cows all the time, they have to be inside as much as possible, because then they lose as little heat as possible, and you're gonna grow your animals fast. The beef is gonna be growing fast, and everything's gonna be good, and you're gonna make a lot of money. Seems though that this is not true, since to be able to set up this kind of operation, you have to borrow a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
These barns don't build themselves, and it only takes a certain amount of years before they're worn out. So at the stage we're in now, the farmers that built these barns and paid off their debt slowly but surely are left with very little after maybe 20 years or 30 years of operation. And as a consequence, their kids don't want to take over the farm because they saw their parents work for 16 hours a day or 12 hours a day and really didn't make anything compared to the neighbor living in a normal house, driving a BMW, and just having some bullshit job for the municipality or state. And the new ones that took up a loan to build these barns, 5 years ago or 3 years ago or 10 years ago, they're in deep shit now, because it was not part of the calculus to pay 6% interest rates on the mortgage. It was supposed to be 2% forever, and now it's not. And those people are struggling to even pay the loan, and they're also struggling to find anyone else to take over to take over the operation in the other end, because why would you want to buy an operation that's doomed to fail? So it seems like a lot of people are looking for solutions these days, and I think grass-fed is mostly a economic argument for those people, because it's a very easy to solution to their biggest pain point. But I think it's definitely worth thinking about, like for example, the omega-3, omega-6 ratio in grass-fed beef seems to be way more beneficial compared to grain-fed, and I think the taste is better. I see a lot of people saying that grass-fed beef, they prefer grain-fed or grain-finished or corn-fed or whatever for grass-fed, but I think possibly they just were fed a poor grass-fed steak. And there's good grass-fed cattle, there's good or pretty good grain-fed cattle, but in general, I think the grass-fed is way superior and more taste. I think the taste is stronger. And I think the feedback from my customers, at least, is that they can notice a big difference from my meat, which I think is maybe 50% due to the breed that has their meat qualities and their slower growth and their way of eating things that are not grass. Even though I say my cows are grass-fed, I can't tell my cows to only eat grass. They eat blueberry bushes, they eat raspberry bushes, they eat trees, they eat the bark of trees, they eat anything they find in the forest and in the fields. So the meat gets the taste from all this, and I think the customer feedback that I've gotten so far confirms, at least for me, that the difference is real. And I think people should just try it out for themselves, and I think they're gonna like it.
Did you know, you said before, like when you get your straw, you get that from the grain farmers around. I'm wondering, because I'm surrounded in the UK and in France by like rapeseed oil fields or sunflower farms. And when they get harvested, I often wonder, where does all that silage go? Where does that, straw that's left over, all of the stalks of those things, do they get shipped off to feed cattle?
I don't know actually. Are they transported away from the field? Do you know?
I don't know. I'm gonna have to start
Because
digging.
a lot of times they just mulch it down in the field. The reason my neighbors don't want that to happen is just because their soil is so degraded that it can't decompose straw anymore. So it gets in the way when they do things. And we have very clay-rich soils here, so the plows are already hard to drag through the soil. And when you get all this straw in your equipment and this undecomposed straw, then it doesn't get any better. It's almost like dragging it through cement. You know how they use clay and straw to make like cement in very like primary yeah.
Some houses were built that way.
Yeah, exactly. So it's obvious that it's very hard to drag a plow through that. And but I think they don't think about the solution as being maybe finding out what's making the soil this hard and making it this dead that it can't decompose anything anymore. But rather just try to get rid of a problem.
Yeah, I know those crops like the rapeseed especially is just basically a weed that it's no good for human consumption, but it's no good for topsoil either. It just completely drains the soil of any kind of nutrients, and it's just a shocking crop. And I just wondered if that is finding its way into the feedstock of cattle anywhere.
I have no idea.
Hopefully, any of the plebs listening, they might be able to help us out with that knowledge. Calving, you mentioned calving before, and it's funny that you brought that up because I was taking my daughters out one day, and as we pulled out of our driveway, we literally saw like a little baby cow stand up, and mum's bum was right up in the air, and it was obvious what had just happened. We're like, whoa, holy shit, look, that's a brand new baby cow right there in front of our eyes. And stupid me, it was like, well, where's the farmer? Where's the vet? Like, what the hell? And if you got, of course, cows have been, like other animals, have given birth unassisted by humans for millennia. And it's just like, man, I had this stupid vision in my head of, and we get gaslit into believing this, and we grew up watching these stupid programs. There was a very famous vet program growing up. I can't remember the name of it. Dr. Harriet, something like that. And he would always be out at 3 a.m. in the middle of the cow field, birthing the cow. And like, you just thought that's what happened. It's crazy, really crazy. I'm so glad like the kids got to see that. It's like, no, look, mum knew what she was doing. Farmer probably doesn't even know yet. We know before the farmer that he's got an extra cow on his fields, in his herd.
Yeah, it's very funny because there's so many farmers that have these much more intensive breeds that you of course get way more meat on much quicker. But why would you want to sacrifice your night's sleep for anything like that? Because they have to, like you say, at 3 a.m. in the morning, stand there with maybe not even pulling with a rope, but actually jacking out with a chain, like a chain and a jack to get the calf out of the mother.
You're kidding. So they wrap the chain around the calf's legs, and then they get a jack and they're just jacking it.
Yeah.
You're what?
Yeah, they have to use a jack because 2 people pulling a rope isn't enough to get a calf out of this cow. And
that's the way we've bred that particular species.
Yeah.
Oh man, that seems so wrong.
Yeah. I understand the farmers. They want to make money, and they're told that okay, if you want to make money, then you have to produce as much as possible. But I don't know. I think you have to keep more thoughts than just one in your head at the same time. And maybe along the way you find out that you're not going to make less money if you can actually sleep at night and be more productive during the day, because the calf actually is there in the morning when you're getting up at normal time, and you didn't have to jack it out in the middle of the night.
That's crazy, man. That is truly crazy. Okay, right. So Bitcoin obviously is a big part of this story. And when you look around at the other farmers and you see the pain that they're going through, and you see the mistakes that they're making with the fiat incentives. I mean, you've already changed your whole calving cycle to make it more natural for the calves, and they're not going to be able to do this, right? That they're not going to have that option because they don't have the knowledge you have and the conviction that you have that Bitcoin is, I'm sure it's part of your balance sheet, and this is something that's going to be your foundation to your thinking of how you farm for the rest of your life. Like this isn't a career, right? This is something you're going to do for the rest of you. This is a way of life. This isn't a job.
That's right. And I think just taking out the monetary debasement, which most people don't have in their spreadsheets, but actually getting it out of the spreadsheet anyway, is a huge, huge benefit to planning ahead. When you can plan that, okay, this is what I made, and that's gonna stay the same, and I can invest a portion of that into my future operation and income. And I'm going to be able to grow it without having to take into account that, okay, but this loan on the tractor is going to maybe cost me this much now, and maybe I'm going to be able to pay it down in 5 years, and then I have no idea how much I will have paid for this tractor, but I just need this tractor, so I need to take up the loan. This debt-based, because farming is so debt-based today. It's insane. The people with the highest debts in our society in Norway, I'm sure it's farmers. I almost don't know a single one that's a full-time farmer without 10 or 20 million NOK in debt. So it's
but how much the cost of these tractors is crazy.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I have a tractor from 1971. It's not that crazy. It probably costs
nice year
$4,000.
But like a new tractor today, and I know like the farmers get visited by traveling salesmen of all sorts, right? Whether they're shilling for fertilizer or some kind of feed or or equipment, obviously. Yeah, you can have a brand new tractor, or what the other big machinery, like the plow that you might need to pull, or what do you use to cut that grass, right? To make and you need a separate machine to cut the grass, then another separate machine to bale it all up, from what I'm aware. Or you get one singing all dancing machine. Yeah, it's just 150,000 euros or something. Incredible. Like
you need one in between there to rake the hay as well. So you need at least 3, and then you need probably three more to sow the seeds of the grass, because the way most people farm, at least, they have to renew their pastures every 3 to 5 years, because the grass is exhausted in that period and can't renew itself. So yeah, it's costing a lot of diesel and a lot of debt and a lot of effort into something that's not so fun anymore for a lot of people, I think. But I'm pretty optimistic, actually. Like it's very easy to dig yourself down in a black hole and just like, oh, look at all these wrong things. But I think this is a time where a lot of people are really reflecting on this. And I'm seeing a big movement in Norway towards, you could say, towards regenerative agriculture, even though some of these people maybe haven't even heard that term before. There's a movement towards looking for solutions, looking for alternatives to how we can operate. How can we become more self-sustained on our operation, instead of being so dependent on importing inputs from other places, and sharing knowledge between each other, and not like there's no competition in farming. Everyone's just sharing, and I think this arena for this has become better just in the last couple of years in Norway, at least. So I'm very optimistic for the future here.
And what's the price? What do you sell per kilo? Are you able to beat the supermarkets, or are you more expensive?
I'm not planning on beating the supermarket. I think my product is better than their product, and I'm gonna charge what I think my product is worth. I don't know what kind of currency you want to do, but in Norwegian currency, I charge between 300 and 350 NOK, depending on the size of the boxes. I sell only in large boxes, so I sell nothing piece by piece, sell only in 10, 20, or 30 kilo boxes. And that's basically just because the quality of life is one of the things that I take into account when I make decisions. And I don't want to take 2,000 orders during a year. I want to take maybe 200 instead. And then I have to increase the size of the boxes. And the way I've understood it so far is that my customers understand this choice and respect it, and they also get challenged because then they get something they've never bought before, so they have to learn a new recipe, and that feels like a pain in the ass maybe the first time, but try it out a couple times, you're so glad that you got this new piece of meat. And that was actually a realization that I made myself when I bought a box of meat before I bought cows, that I got this weird thing called ossobuco, which is like the you know what it is? It's like I think it's from the front leg of the animal, like in
it's delicious
slices. And I've never heard about this before. And it was the last thing I took out of the freezer because I was just like, oh, do I have to learn a new recipe now? And then I learned a new recipe. It was so easy. Just put it in on the stove, leave it for 5 hours, and then it's done. And it's the most tender and delicious meat you'll ever eat, with all the bone marrow just disappearing into the soup and giving the flavor to the whole soup. Is just fantastic. And I would have never known about ossobuco if I didn't buy this beef box, and now that's one of the parts that I have in almost every beef box myself. So
and the tail, right? The oxtail, classic oxtail soup.
Oxtail is also fantastic. I had never tasted this before, but I made some oxtail from our last round of slaughtering, and it was fantastic.
Brilliant. It's you got that. It's perfect meaty broth. It's nothing like the shitty oxtail soup that you're going to buy in a can in the supermarket. Like, it's like, oh God. But like, if you get the actual oxtail and you cook it perfectly, and it's just beautiful, and the meat falls off the bone, and all the goodness in the soup. And the other thing I was going to mention, offal, organ meat and things like that. We bought a box of meat from one of our local farmers, beef farmers. Unfortunately, not for Bitcoin. He's not there yet. And when I went over to go and pick it up, it was an 8 kilo box, I think. Oh, just for those listening, you said 300 Noki per kilo. That's about 22 pounds, 23 pounds per kilo, or about 24, 25 euros per kilo. Just for those that are wondering. And I should do US dollars, shouldn't I? Sorry, guys. $28, $29 per kilo for perfectly wonderful grass-fed beef. So I went over to go and pick it up, and he asked me, oh, here you go, try this. Would you like to take some of this with you? And I'm like, yeah, sure. What is it? There's that heart steaks. Like, all right, I'm down. Let's try it. And it was delicious. It was amazing. And I didn't have to do anything. It was already prepared. They were already, cut up and vacuum packed and everything. So I didn't have to do any of it's not like I carried a great big heart into the kitchen and had to get all the sinews and everything out and chop it all up. And I don't think many people would have tried it if they'd have seen that. There's steps you have to take slowly. But to turn up with the thing just looking like a steak and then explaining, right, this is the heart, let's try it. Yeah, it was amazing.
But I mean, why wouldn't the strongest muscle in the whole body just be delicious? It's fantastic.
Do you get a lot of orders for that as well?
Yeah, I took basically all the organ meats back last time. Like, I have to buy it from the slaughtery because I can't do the slaughtering and cutting process myself, because that's if you think farming bureaucracy is bad, then try meat processing bureaucracy. It's completely insane. So I buy it back from the slaughtery. And
why do you have to buy it back? It's your animal that went in.
That's just how it works. I pay them to slaughter the animal for me, and then I also have to buy back anything extra that I want out of the ordinary that they use. So also the oxtails they would throw away, and yeah, I wouldn't get them if I didn't tell them that I would.
So it's not like they're selling them on to someone else. That it's just going to go in the bin.
I actually don't know if they sell it to someone else, but I'm never seeing it again, even though it's my animal and I pay them to slaughter it for me. I'm not seeing the oxtails again unless I specifically say, give me the oxtail. And
That's outrageous. That's madness.
That's how it is. But anyway, I think the hearts sold out in maybe 5 minutes last time. So I saved one for myself that I had cured. So it's salted and smoked and dried for some time. I have an old guy in the village that does this very, very cheap. And it tastes amazing. I don't know, it's just like eating pure life and energy, you know. It tastes fantastic, and it contains so many nutrients.
Yeah, a lot of the vitamins and nutrients that we've been starved of over the years, because that cut of meat has just been completely taken away from our diets. Like nobody eats that stuff anymore.
And I also think the organ meats is maybe a great indicator of how good your product is, because I had never I've never been a big like awful person before. I had experimented a little bit before I got cows myself, like trying liver and heart and these kind of things. And lungs too, actually. But I got to know some real like liver experts, some like really experienced liver people when I started selling the offals myself, and some of them were just completely amazed. Like one of them described the way of like eating this liver from the last round I slaughtered, like cutting a fresh orange. Like the taste was like just right into your face when you cut it, or like the positive parts of the liver just hit your face as you cut into it, and the taste was amazing. The tenderness was amazing. There's always these canals in the liver that aren't so good to eat, and there was so little of those, and they were not so hard. Like everything was just so good. And I think that's a great indicator of how the animal is lived, and how, because these organs are made to, you know, take out the toxins and make sure the system works. So if those are good, then I think we've probably done something right, and it's going to reflect in the rest of the product.
All right, I got to ask, how was it that first time you had to load up the cattle truck and wave them off to the slaughterhouse?
You know, that really sucked. Yeah, that was really hard. I was not looking forward to it. I slept bad the night before, and the worst part about it was actually meeting the animal in the morning, because the animal knows.
Really? You think?
Oh yeah, they're good at reading you. And this cow tried her best to to avoid this situation right before, because she was like, okay, something's up. So yeah, they know.
No, don't tell me that. That's awful.
Yeah, that's how it is. But that's also why I think getting to the point, like hopefully sometime in the future, we don't have to put up with all the bureaucracy that's
well, this is the thing, right?
And
it's so demeaning to the animal, and the way they do it, and it's sheep especially, because they just ship them in like shoulder to shoulder, like pack them in. I've seen them how they do it in New Zealand. It's not the way to go. So like the truck turns up, and what do you got to do? You got to herd them into that truck, right? And they're driven away. They don't know what the hell kind of environment they're in. They're, you know, being thrown around the back of that thing as it's going around corners and up and down hills and whatever. And it gets out. I mean, pure stress. There's no way to end. There just isn't. But if you were allowed to do it alone in your own field, what would it look like? How would it be done? Like this is something we definitely have to take back control of, for sure. This part of the life cycle.
I totally agree. And I think there's been people trying that in Norway, just having these mobile slaughteries going around to farms and taking them out. But it's just regulations and rules that this doesn't fit into. And I don't know the reasons why there's no will to try to fix this, because the argument for why that is a good thing is so obvious. And why shouldn't I, with the land that I own and the animals that I bought and the work that I put in, be allowed to choose how they end their lives, as long as you can argue that the safety of the food that's the end product is at least as safe, and is probably safer, much safer than it would have been if it was done the regular way. Then I think it's sad that we don't have any more more decision or more power over the things we own, the things we do, the work we put in than we do today. But part of being a Bitcoiner is believing that this is going to improve in the future. Otherwise, I think there would be no point in owning Bitcoin either.
What would it look like if farmers were to take that back? Come the day.
Do you mean the slaughtery in itself?
Like how are you thinking about how it should look like, that slaughter?
I think it would be very easy. Just you can shoot an animal in a herd without the herd going crazy at all. The herd just watches the animal drop dead, and they're not like humans. They're not empathetic beings, so they would just keep on grazing. And you could just move in with whatever mobile slaughtering truck you have, lift the animal up, slaughter it right there in the pasture, or drag it up to the farm or wherever, and just get the job done, and cut it right there at the farm, pack it, and put the names on it and ship it to your customers. Hell, your customers could even watch and just take the meat home straight away. So
a rifle would be like the quickest and easiest way.
Yeah, I've seen people. I've not been there and seen it, but I know people that do this for their own consumption, because it's allowed to do it then. And we're probably going to do it ourselves when the time comes, so we can try it out on our own meat before we do it on any meat that's going to be sold. But I really hope it gets to the point where we can do this in the future, and not have to ship our animals off in a truck full of other animals, and just hope that they're being treated fairly in the last couple of days of their lives, but not really knowing.
Yeah. All right, man. It's been very, very educational. Really appreciate you coming on, and well done for everything that you're doing, and making the decision and sticking with it. It's great to see that you're getting the support from the plebs over in Norway there as well, and they're supporting you with the business and bringing you a new revenue stream that you can rely on and grow on. But I got to ask you the last question. If you had one last orange pill left to give to somebody, who would you give it to, and why?
Yeah, I knew this question was going to come because I've heard enough of your episodes. but I haven't thought about giving an answer to this. So let's see. I don't know. I think one of my biggest inspirations when it comes to how we can solve the pitfall we have fallen into in farming. His name is Richard Perkins. He's a YouTuber, an author. He's holding courses in holistic management or regenerative agriculture in his farm in Sweden, but he's originally British as well. But his YouTube channel is great. I think his YouTube channel is also called Richard Perkins. So if I could orange pill one person so that we could tie these movements of regenerative agriculture, decentralized agriculture, making small farms profitable, and getting more people back on land, because I think there's no lack of people that want to get back on the land, farming, making their own food, and maybe selling a little bit to pay off their loans or to buy some nice things. Then I think Richard Perkins would be the right person to give this single orange pill to.
Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah. Yeah, that's good shout, man. Good shout. All right. we're going to end it. I really appreciate you coming on. Where can people come and find you if they want to get out into Norway and come visit, see the farm, or hook up on Twitter? What's the best way?
Hey, if people want to come and see the farm, we're arranging or we're hosting a having party here, or having festival in April. So there's no date set yet, but block time 840,000, estimated to be around April 17th or 18th this year. We're gonna have a roasted wild boar that I bought from a Bitcoiner here in Norway on the fire. We're gonna roast some roosters that we hatched ourselves, fed ourselves here on the farm. We're also going to have some grass-fed beef, and everything is going to be included. And we have sold, I think, around 60 tickets now, and they cost around 210,000 sats each. And the total hard cap of tickets is 210. So it's looking like we're gonna sell out before April. I think it's been a week since we announced that we're going to hold the festival, and it was very very spontaneous, this whole thing. There was some podcasters, some Bitcoin podcasters here in Norway that suggested that, oh, we should have a having party in Norway too, like in a church or a barn or something. And they proposed that, oh wait, can't we ask Ivy if he can host it in his farm? And you know, a week later I was there. I said, yeah, let's go. And yeah, now we're up and running. So if anyone want to join us here in Norway for the Having Festival, it's going to be, I'm sure it's going to be a great event. There's a lot of great people coming, and it's going to be very on the ground, very yeah, very grounded, the whole thing. So then you can visit me on Twitter at Ivy the Farmer, or you can go to the website we put up for this, which is havingfestival.com.
Nice, man. Halving festival. Does it coincide with a calving festival as well? You could.
Looks like the calvings will be done by then, which I think is a good thing, because then people can look at this cute
cow cuddling. Cow cuddling. We're all the way back to cow cuddling farms.
It's gonna be the cow cuddling festival.
Yeah. That sounds awesome. So are people going to come and camp out as well?
Yeah, that's the plan. So we're having a tent site where people can bring their own tent and sleep over. And if you don't have a tent, then just sleep in the barn.
Love it.
All the food is included. If you want to indulge yourself with some alcohol, then bring your own.
Yeah, love it. All right, man. Well, it was great to meet you, Ivan. Thank you so much for coming on, and thanks for everything you're doing for the plebs and the Bitcoin space.
Great to talk to you.
Take care, brother.
You too.